My friends, have you ever tried explaining your pain to someone who just didn't understand it? You spoke from your heart, but your words only made things worse. You wanted peace, but the conversation became war. You wanted closeness, but somehow you ended up more distant. And in that silence that followed, something strange happened. You began to heal. You see, sometimes silence says what words cannot. Sometimes distance repairs what closeness keeps breaking. There are moments in life where the most powerful thing you can do is not say more, but step back more. Because it's not always in talking that we find clarity, it's in observing. It's not in explaining that we find peace, it's in understanding. When life becomes too loud, through arguments, expectations, emotions, God gently invites us to take a step back, not to run away, but to rise above. The noise outside often hides the noise within. But when we embrace distance, not as disconnection, but as reflection, we start hearing the whispers of wisdom that words were too weak to carry. So today, let's dive into a truth that life itself keeps trying to teach us. Why distance can heal what words cannot. And through this journey, may we learn how to find peace, not by winning arguments, but by understanding silence. Distance is not disconnection, it's divine reflection. Many people think that when we take space from someone or something, it means we are cutting them off or walking away. But in truth, distance is not about breaking bonds, it's about bringing balance. When life becomes too close, too cluttered, or too loud, we lose the ability to see clearly. We start reacting instead of responding. We start assuming instead of understanding. And in those moments, distance becomes a gift, a quiet pause gifted by the universe to help us realign our hearts and minds. Think of the sky. Even the clouds that drift away are not gone forever. They simply move to gather more moisture, to grow, and eventually return as rain. In the same way, when you distance yourself, you are not abandoning anyone or anything. You are preparing yourself to return with greater clarity, compassion, and calm. Many people confuse closeness with care. They believe that if they are always near, always talking, always trying, that means they love deeply. But sometimes the deepest love is expressed in silence, in space, in trusting that the bond is strong enough to survive without constant contact. Let's look at daily life. Imagine two people arguing, both right in their own ways, both trying to be understood. The conversation starts with care but ends in chaos. Emotions rise, voices overlap, and the purpose of the talk gets lost in the noise. No one is listening anymore. In such moments, we feel frustrated, even helpless. But what happens when one of them decides to walk away, not in anger, but in awareness? The silence that follows may feel cold at first, but slowly it becomes warm with understanding. In that silence, reflection begins. The mind starts replaying not the noise, but the meaning. The ego calms down, and the heart finally whispers what the mouth couldn't say. Maybe I should have listened more. Maybe they were hurting too. Distance doesn't always mean leaving physically. Sometimes it means creating emotional space. It means not reacting instantly to every word thrown your way. It means letting go of the need to fix everything right now. When you give yourself emotional distance, you allow wisdom to enter before your words do. You give your heart a chance to catch up with your emotions. That's divine reflection, the quiet space where you see not just others, but yourself more clearly. Have you ever noticed how photographers step back before taking a picture? They don't go too close, they find the perfect distance. Because when you're too close, the picture gets blurred. Life is the same. When you're too close to a problem, Too entangled in emotions, you can't see the full picture. But when you step back, even just a little, suddenly you begin to see patterns. Where things went wrong, what truly matters, and what doesn't. That's the beauty of divine reflection. There was once a man who loved his friend dearly. But over time, small misunderstandings piled up like dust on a mirror. Every talk turned into tension, every meeting into conflict. So one day, he decided to stop explaining. He didn't block or blame, he just chose peace. Days turned into weeks, and the friend began to miss him. Not the arguments, but the connection. In that silent gap, both realized how much ego had spoken louder than love. When they finally met again, they didn't need long speeches. A quiet hug was enough. Distance had healed what words could not. Sometimes God teaches us through absence. When people or situations suddenly move away, it hurts. But often, that pain carries purpose. Maybe it's to show us that we depended too much on someone else for happiness. Maybe it's to remind us that growth often happens in solitude. Or maybe it's simply to protect our peace. You see, divine reflection is not just about looking at others. It's also about looking within. It's about seeing the parts of yourself that got lost while trying to please everyone else. In the rush of life, we rarely stop to notice how noise has become our comfort zone. We wake up to messages, rush into conversations, argue in our minds even when no one is around. We have forgotten the art of quiet. But distance teaches us silence again. It reminds us that stillness is not empty, it's full of answers. When you take distance, you begin to notice how your own energy changes. You become more grounded. Your thoughts become clearer. Your emotions stop swinging wildly, and you start feeling centered again. That's divine reflection in its purest form. The mirror that life holds up when we dare to pause. And isn't it beautiful that nature reflects the same truth? Even the moon, though far away, lights up our night. It doesn't need to shout, its silence shines. The river doesn't argue with the rocks, it flows around them. The tree doesn't chase every falling leaf, it trusts the season. Similarly, when we learn to embrace distance with love, we stop fighting everything and start flowing with life. So, the next time someone steps away, don't rush to fill the silence with fear. Don't chase closure in conversation. Instead, breathe. Reflect. Allow time and distance to do what words cannot. You might just find that the space between you is not empty. It's sacred. It's where healing happens. It's where hearts soften, understanding grows, and love matures. Because distance, when accepted with faith, becomes not separation but transformation. It's not losing connection, it's finding yourself again. It's not escaping reality, it's embracing peace. So, if you're in a season of silence right now, don't see it as punishment, see it as preparation. The universe often speaks the loudest in the quietest moments. And when you listen deeply, you'll realize distance never disconnects souls that are meant to stay connected. It only refines them through divine reflection. Words can create walls when the heart isn't ready to listen. Many times in life, we believe that if we can just explain ourselves better, if we can find the right words, the right tone, or the right moment, everything will fall back into place. But the truth is, when emotions are high and hearts are closed, even the most beautiful words sound like noise. Communication doesn't always depend on what we say. It depends on the state of the heart that hears it. When hearts are wounded or filled with pride, words become weapons instead of bridges. Think about a time when you tried to fix a misunderstanding. You might have poured your soul into your explanation, choosing your words carefully, hoping they would heal. But instead of healing, they hurt more. The other person misunderstood your intention, twisted your meaning, or simply didn't want to listen. You walked away thinking, what more could I have said? But maybe it wasn't about the words at all. Maybe the heart on the other side was not ready to receive them. In relationships, be it between friends, family, or partners, there comes a moment when talking no longer works. Not because love has ended, but because pain has taken over. When pain speaks, logic disappears. When ego steps in, empathy steps out. You can't pour understanding into a closed vessel. You can't plant seeds of peace in a soil that isn't ready. The timing of the heart matters more than the sound of the voice. Imagine trying to pour water into a cup that's upside down. No matter how pure or refreshing the water is, it will spill. That's how communication fails when hearts are not open. Sometimes, the person you're talking to isn't rejecting you. They're just drowning in their own noise. They can't hear you over their own fears, insecurities, or anger. And in those moments, silence can be wiser than speech. Because silence doesn't mean you've given up. It means you're giving space for the heart to open naturally. Let's take a simple example. A mother scolds her teenage son for being careless. The son feels misunderstood and shouts back, "You never trust me." The mother, hurt by his tone, says things she doesn't mean. Both are speaking, but neither is listening. Words fly back and forth, but none land where they should. Hours later, silence fills the room. No one is speaking, but now both are thinking. The mother realizes her fear for his safety made her harsh. The son realizes his mother's anger was love in disguise. When they finally talk again, the words flow from understanding, not ego. The same words, "I care about you," now sound softer, truer, deeper. The words didn't change, the hearts did. That's why it's often said that silence is not empty, it's full of preparation. When you choose to stop explaining, you allow emotions to settle. When you give someone time and space, you're giving them a chance to lower their defenses. When the storm calms, even a whisper can be heard clearly. Sometimes, the best thing you can do for a relationship is to stop talking for a while and start listening. Not to their words, but to their silence. In daily life, we all face moments where we wish our words could fix everything. Maybe a friend misunderstood your intention. Maybe your colleague doubted your effort. Maybe a loved one felt ignored when you were simply tired. In those moments, we rush to speak, to explain, to defend. But not every truth is meant to be told immediately. Sometimes, truth needs time. Words that are spoken too soon can sound like blame. But words that come after reflection sound like wisdom. Think of an artist painting a picture. If they rush to finish, the colors blend wrongly, the strokes lose depth. But if they step back, look at it from afar, and then return, the painting gains clarity. Words are like that too. They need distance and silence to mature. When we speak without that pause, we often speak from emotion, not understanding. But when we wait, our words carry the calm of clarity. There's a story of two monks traveling together. One was young and impatient, the other old and wise. During their journey, the younger monk got angry when someone insulted him and wanted to respond immediately. The older monk smiled and said, "Let the dust settle before you see the reflection." Hours later, when they stopped by a river, the younger monk realized the truth. The river's surface was clear only after the ripples calmed down. Similarly, our words should come after our hearts are calm, otherwise they only create more ripples. In relationships and in life, not every situation needs immediate explanation. Some things need experience. some things need stillness. When we learn to pause before we speak, we learn to speak not to be right, but to be kind. Because words spoken in the heat of the moment may satisfy the ego, but often scar the soul. But words spoken after reflection can heal wounds we didn't even know were there. So, when someone doesn't understand you, don't rush to repeat yourself louder. Step back. Breathe. Give them time to listen with their heart, not their ears. Because hearts that are not ready to receive your truth will always reject your words. But when the heart softens, even silence will speak volumes. The next time you find yourself in a moment where words are failing, remember this: walls can be built with sentences, and bridges can be built with silence. Know which one you're constructing. The strength of a relationship lies not in how much we talk, but in how well we understand without words. And when we learn this art, we no longer use words to win arguments, we use silence to win peace. Because sometimes the heart doesn't need more explanations, it just needs more empathy. And the truest connection happens not when we speak perfectly, but when we pause patiently until both hearts are ready to listen again. Healing begins in silence. There's something deeply sacred about the moments when everything becomes still. When the noise of arguments fades, when the rush of life slows down, and when even our own thoughts begin to whisper instead of scream, something begins to heal. Silence is not the absence of sound, it's the presence of understanding. It is that quiet corner of life where the heart finally exhales. In silence, the pieces of your soul that were once scattered start finding their way back home. You begin to notice the weight you've been carrying, the wounds you've been hiding, and the peace you've been craving. We live in a world that glorifies noise, constant talking, explaining, sharing, proving, and defending. We are surrounded by voices, both outside and inside, telling us what to do, how to feel, and who to be. But rarely do we stop and listen to the voice that matters most, the one within. When life becomes overwhelming, silence becomes our medicine. It doesn't heal by doing something, it heals by allowing. It allows emotions to breathe, pain to surface, and truth to reveal itself. Think of how a physical wound heals. When you cut your finger, you don't keep touching it to make it better. You clean it once and then let it rest. You give it time. You let silence do the work. The body knows how to repair itself when you stop interfering. The same happens with emotional wounds. When someone hurts you, when you lose something, or when you fail, your first instinct is to talk it out, to explain, or to distract yourself. But true healing starts when you sit quietly with your pain and allow yourself to feel it fully. That's when you begin to understand that silence is not loneliness, it's therapy for the soul. Imagine a person who has gone through heartbreak. In the beginning, they want answers, they want closure, they replay every conversation in their head, every word spoken, every gesture misread. They call, they text, they cry, they talk to friends, hoping someone will say something that makes it all make sense. But after a while, when the words stop and the tears run dry, they sit in silence. They look out of the window at night, and suddenly the stillness begins to speak. It whispers, you don't need closure from them, you need peace from within. That is how healing begins, not with noise, but with silence that wraps your pain like a warm blanket and reminds you that you will be okay. There's a reason why nature heals us. When you walk by the sea or sit under a tree, you don't hear lectures or sermons. You hear silence, soft, alive, and comforting. The waves don't speak, yet they soothe. The trees don't advise, yet they calm. Silence in nature mirrors silence within. It reminds us that not everything needs explanation, some things just need acceptance. The stillness around you slowly becomes the stillness inside you. In daily life, we often mistake silence for weakness. When we stop talking, people think we have nothing to say. But silence doesn't mean we are empty. It means we are full of thoughts that no longer need validation. It means we have reached a place where peace matters more than proving. Think about the times when you stopped responding to conflict, not because you didn't care, but because you finally understood that arguing steals your peace while silence saves it. That is strength. That is maturity. Healing begins the moment you choose silence over chaos. There's a beautiful thing that happens when you learn to sit in silence with yourself. You start hearing your own wisdom. You realize that you already know what to do, that your intuition was never gone, just drowned out by noise. You start noticing how often you speak out of fear rather than love, and you begin to correct that quietly. Silence becomes your teacher. It shows you your patterns, your pain, your purpose. It doesn't judge or rush, it simply reveals. When you allow silence into your life, even relationships begin to change. You no longer feel the urge to explain yourself endlessly. You stop chasing after those who don't understand you. You start valuing people who can sit with you without words. Because healing silence doesn't just happen alone, it also happens in the presence of people who understand the language of stillness. Some friendships are quiet yet powerful. They don't need daily conversations to stay alive. Some love stories breathe in silence, not in words. Remember, even the most divine connections often unfold in silence. The relationship between the sun and the earth, between the moon and the tides, between the seed and the soil, all grow without sound. Healing too happens in that same sacred quiet. When you stop trying to control your pain, when you stop forcing answers, when you simply let life unfold at its own pace, something magical happens. You begin to heal from the inside out, and healing is not a sudden miracle, it's a silent unfolding. You may not even notice it at first. One morning, you'll wake up and realize the heaviness in your chest is lighter. The memories that once hurt deeply now feel softer. You start smiling again without forcing it. You begin to see beauty in small things. The morning sunlight, the laughter of a child, the sound of rain. That's the silent victory of healing. It doesn't announce itself, it simply becomes part of who you are. So when life breaks your heart, don't rush to fill the silence. Don't escape it with distractions or endless talk. Sit in it, feel it, let it cleanse you. Because silence is not the absence of life, it's the presence of peace. It's where the soul remembers that no matter how loud the world becomes, there's always a place within you that remains untouched, whole, and calm. That's where healing begins, not outside, not through others, but in the sacred silence between your breaths, where you and your Creator meet quietly and peace is finally reborn. Not every silence is empty, some silences are full of answers. We often fear silence because it feels like nothingness. We associate it with distance, absence, or uncertainty. But silence is not a void, it is a vessel. It carries wisdom, peace, and understanding that words often fail to express. When life quiets down, when the people we love stop talking, or when the noise around us fades, we think something is wrong. But perhaps in that stillness, something deeply right is happening. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of truth. In our daily lives, we are surrounded by constant communication, messages, notifications, conversations, and debates. We fill every moment with sound, afraid that quiet might expose something we are not ready to face. Yet, if we look closely, some of the most meaningful moments in life happen without a single word. When a mother holds her newborn child, she doesn't need to speak. Her silence is full of love. When two friends sit together after a long day, without talking, their silence says, "I'm here for you." When you stand in front of a sunset and feel something shift inside you, that's silence speaking. Silence can be uncomfortable because it confronts us with ourselves. It's in silence that the truth we've been avoiding finally finds a voice. We realize what we truly feel, what we truly need, and who we truly are. Sometimes we run from silence because we fear what it might reveal. But if we have the courage to stay with it, silence becomes our greatest teacher. It starts to answer questions we've been asking for years. Not in words, but in understanding. Imagine someone who's going through a tough time, a relationship ending, a job loss, or deep disappointment. At first, they seek advice, talk to everyone, look for reasons, explanations, and comfort in conversation. But after all the words are spoken, they're still left with an ache that words can't touch. Then one night, they stop talking. They sit alone in the quiet. At first, the silence feels heavy, almost unbearable. But as the minutes pass, something shifts. The mind starts to slow down. The heart begins to breathe again. They realize that the world didn't end. They are still here. The silence that once felt empty now feels full of acceptance, full of understanding, full of strength. That's when they realize not every silence is empty. Some silences are sacred spaces where healing begins. Life often teaches us through silence. When a loved one passes away, there are no words that can make sense of it. But sitting in that silence, feeling the memories flow, we begin to understand love in a deeper way. When our prayers go unanswered, it's easy to think that God is silent. But maybe in that silence, He's preparing us for something greater. The answers don't always come in the form of a voice. Sometimes they come as peace. You may not hear why things happened, but you feel calm enough to keep going. That's an answer too. Just not the one we expected. Think about nature. It speaks in silence all the time. The rising sun doesn't make noise, yet it brightens the world. The moon doesn't shout, yet it guides the night. Flowers don't talk, yet they attract the bee through quiet beauty. The mountains don't explain their strength, they just stand firm. Nature communicates not through words, but through presence. In the same way, the silence in our lives often communicates something deeper than words ever could. It reminds us that peace doesn't need to be spoken, it just needs to be felt. In our relationships too, silence can be powerful. There are moments when saying nothing is the greatest form of respect. When someone you love is hurting, your quiet presence can be more healing than 1,000 words. You don't need to fix everything. Sometimes you just need to be there. Silence, when shared with love, becomes a language of compassion. It says, "I understand, even without sound." There are also times when silence protects us. Not every argument deserves our reply. Not every insult deserves our attention. When you choose silence in the face of provocation, it doesn't mean you are weak. It means you are wise enough to value your peace over your pride. Your silence becomes your strength. You start realizing that peace is not found in proving others wrong, but in staying true to yourself. And when you stop reacting to every noise, you begin to hear your own intuition more clearly. There's a beautiful thing that happens when you learn to listen to silence. It starts revealing patterns in your life. You begin to notice the lessons hidden in your pain, the beauty hidden in your routine, and the purpose hidden in your struggles. Silence gives you perspective. It connects the dots that noise keeps scattering. It teaches you that some of life's greatest answers are not meant to be spoken, they're meant to be understood. One day, when you look back, you'll realize that the times when life was quiet were not wasted, they were sacred. The silence between endings and new beginnings, between heartbreak and healing, between confusion and clarity, that was where transformation was taking place. Just like the night silently prepares the dawn, your silent seasons are preparing your soul for light. So when life goes quiet, don't rush to fill the silence. Don't panic when people stop talking, when opportunities pause, or when things slow down. Sit with it, feel it, listen deeply. Because sometimes the silence you fear is actually the answer you've been searching for. It's the universe's way of saying, you don't need more words, you need more awareness. The answers are already within you. They just need a little quiet to be heard. And when you finally understand that, silence will no longer scare you. You'll welcome it like an old friend, knowing it carries wisdom far greater than noise. Because not every silence is empty, some silences are overflowing. With peace, with clarity, with love, and with the quiet realization that you were never lost at all. Distance reveals who truly values your presence. It's easy to feel loved when everyone is around you, when messages are frequent, calls come often, and people make time. But true connection is tested not in closeness, but in distance. When you step away, when life creates space between you and others, that's when you see who genuinely cares and who was only there for convenience. Because distance doesn't weaken real bonds, it filters them. It separates the temporary from the timeless, the surface from the soul. In life, we all go through phases where we must step back, sometimes by choice, sometimes by circumstance. Maybe you move to a new city, start focusing on your goals, or simply need time to find peace after chaos. It's in those moments of distance that people reveal their hearts. Some disappear, some grow distant, but some stay quietly connected. They may not call every day, but they think of you. They may not always speak, but when they do, it feels genuine. That's when you realize love doesn't need constant proof. It thrives in silent understanding. Think of how the stars are far away from us, yet their light still reaches us. Even from a distance, they shine steadily. Real relationships are like that. They don't fade when distance appears, they glow even stronger. People who truly value you don't let physical or emotional space dim their affection. They remain connected through respect, through silent care, through genuine thoughts. And when you meet them again after a long time, it feels as if nothing ever changed. That's because real connections are not held by proximity, they are held by heart. We often mistake closeness for care. We think those who are always near us value us most. But sometimes, those who give you space are the ones who love you the deepest. They understand your need to grow, to think, to heal. They don't demand constant attention because they trust your bond. It's easy to cling to people when you're afraid of losing them. But letting someone breathe freely, even if it means being apart, takes maturity. True love doesn't chain, it trusts. True friendship doesn't suffocate, it supports. There's a beautiful truth hidden in distance. It teaches us the difference between attachment and affection. Attachment says, I need you here with me. Affection says, I wish you well even from afar. The first is about control, the second is about care. Sometimes, when you take distance, you might notice that certain people stop reaching out. At first, it hurts. You question your worth, wondering if you mattered at all. But with time, you'll see that distance didn't make them change. It revealed what was already there. People who value your presence don't forget you when you're not visible. They carry you in their prayers, in their thoughts, in their small daily moments. Imagine a young woman working abroad, far from home. At first, her phone buzzes constantly, friends checking in, relatives asking how she's doing. But as months pass, the messages slow down. The ones who truly love her still find time to reach out, even if only occasionally, to ask, "Are you okay?" The rest fade into the background.